Hello, I'm Daniela. In today's video, I'm going to show you a simple process for creating a fabric candy cane. Now, I like to stuff these with little stuffing, the extra fluff from a pillow, and they make beautiful candy canes. Depending on the fabric you use, they can be elegant or rustic or really traditional. I think these are great to tuck in a fabric journal or if you make enough of them to hang on your tree. So let's get started. So for my fabric Christmas journal, I created this simple stuffed candy cane. I'm going to show you how to do it. It's just a pleasure to create. It's very enjoyable. You can use almost any fabric. Felt would be lovely. I even used some old clothing. I like to make them in the traditional colors, the red and white, but you don't have to. You can make them in any color or texture. So let me show you some variations and how I create this. So this is what I mean by the traditional colors. I have like red and white stripes, and you get variations based on the fabric. And this is just a raw cut, and this is one with the pinking shears. So it's a different look. This kind of reminds me of a cat I once had that always had crazy hair. So it makes me giggle when I see it, but I'm sure other people have different associations with it. Here's another candy cane with the stripe. Here's one with more Christmas fabric, but different colors. The pink and the green add another element. And then here's one where I took an old sweatshirt that I had that I no longer used. It's a very comfy one because it has this beautiful like teddy bear fabric texture, and it's white and a neutral. Now these would make great Christmas ornaments as well. Let me show you the process. You can make them in any size you want. You'll need your fabric, some thread. You can even use a sewing machine if you'd rather instead of needle and thread. And then stuffing. This is from stuffing from an old pillow. So now I created a template. This is just some black cardstock, and I played around with it. It took me a few tries. You can see my lines here until I had the size I wanted. If I was to make these for ornaments for a tree, I'd probably make abundance of sizes because I like that variation. But for this, for my journal, this was a good size for me. So it's about 6 inches tall, maybe 2.5 to 3 inches wide at its widest point, and it doesn't have to be perfect. Then the fun part comes with choosing your fabric, because I tend to stick to those traditional colors. I have this red and cream polka dot fabric, which I'm going to use today. But this would make a beautiful candy cane. Actually, anything really would. And even this would because of the colors. So to get started, you're just going to take your template and your fabric. Now I like to fold it right in half. And this way I have enough fabric and I can make a single cut for the entire candy cane. You can press your fabric if you want. You just need to have just a slight amount more of fabric around the edge of your candy cane. I take a heat erasable pen just because that's what works for me. You can use a regular pen as well. You're going to cover your pen marks with stitches. And then I just trace around my template. So after I have that traced, I have my candy cane on my fabric. I just take a few pins and pin it through the candy cane. I want to hold both of my fabrics in place for this step. Now you could trim it with your scissors right away, and if you're going to use pinking shears, you can do that. But I like to start my stitching right away. And because my stitches are going to show, I choose a bold color. So I'm going to use the red thread. And then I'll just come in here and I'll just choose a spot, and I start my needle with my knot on the end, just somewhere where I can hide it. So I'm going to stitch all the way around to just about maybe here, 3/4 of the way. After I hide my knot in between the fabrics, I'm just going to start my stitching. And I just want to take this nice and slow and easy. Really enjoy this process. It's a simple image to stitch. So you can do a running stitch. I like to do the stab stitch. I don't know, maybe it gets out a little frustration for me, but I'll stitch all the way around. And then when I stitched around it 3/4 of the way, I knotted off my end here, and I'm going to just tuck that knot, trying to tuck it underneath and inside of that candy cane. If it doesn't go, that's okay. We'll worry about that later. But now I have most of it stitched around. I want to start to stuff it before I continue to stitch it. If you have a lot more on your thread, you'll just want to tuck that needle. There's no need to knot your thread. I just didn't have very much left, so I thought it was a good time to end the thread. So I'll remove my pins, and then I just take a little bit of this fluff, and I'm just going to stuff it in. So I just take it, put it here, and just work it in. I find it's helpful if I have a pen or something not pointy that I can work it down. And you just play around stuffing it in, trying to get it to the end here. Now another trick that I like to do is when I'm doing my top stitching, particularly if I'm stitching along a curve, I'll make my stitches a little closer together and a little shorter on the curve, and that just gives me a nice curve. So I'll play around stuffing this to my liking. You can really stuff it or just lightly stuff it, and if you don't want to stuff it, you don't have to do that either. That's the beauty of this. It's a kind of a fun little project, very forgiving, very enjoyable. So now that I have everything stuffed where I stitched, I'm just going to take my thread, since I'm starting again, and because I'm starting again, I'm going to start my stitches over here and close up my piece. I might add a little more stuffing after I sew this curve. Again, I like to come in here very close to where I started it so that my knot is on the inside of my candy cane. Hold my fabric down, and now I'll just stitch a few stitches all the way around and then stuff that candy cane a little bit further. Now that I've stitched around to hold the shape of that candy cane, I'll continue to fill it and stitch it closed. So now after I make my last stitch, see that it's all intact, I'll come up in the back here and make the tiniest little stitch that I can then knot my thread. So now, since I used heat erasable pen, I'm going to take my iron and just try and press around that area where I put the ink so that I could trace my candy cane. It's a little tricky to do when it's stuffed, but it works. And as you can see, I have a really cute candy cane. So now I'm going to either use my pinking shears or just my regular scissors, and I'm going to cut around, leaving just a maybe 1/4 inch or less border. So here I have it cut out. I'll go back in and just trim it just to make that edge a little bit neater. I can see some areas where I fluctuated and it's not quite neat, so I'll just tidy that up. And this is also the time where if the stuffing didn't go all the way to the end, I'll just kind of work it in. So now I have my candy cane, and it's perfect as a bowl filler or something to stick inside my fabric book. But if I wanted to make this an ornament, I just take a little piece of thread, maybe 10 to 12 inches of thread, and then I'd come in here and stitch just a little loop, hold that up with my little knot here, remove the needle, and then I knot the top of it. And you don't even need that knot on your thread initially. Out of habit, I always have one. I'll trim that off. And here I have a cute little fabric ornament. Make a great gift topper or something to hang on the tree. So that's how I make the fabric candy canes. I really enjoy stitching these pieces. You can make them out of felt, leftover fabric, or even Christmas fabric like I showed in the video. There are so many variations to this technique, but I just think they're simple and beautiful. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. Thanks for joining me today.